Welcome back, everyone, to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, Litecoin Leader. Today, well, let's get that branding back up there so I can point to it. So there's my logo right over there, and I'm also going to put over here a video that I did yesterday about inflation, and we're going to talk about deflation today. And actually, we're going to talk about a point in the U.S. history and other countries as well during the same time frame that experienced a deflationary economy and what that meant. But before I do, I want to say, please, if you like this kind of content and you want to help out the channel, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and also post these videos on another social media platform to get the word out, get more eyeballs onto a topic that you enjoyed and hopefully will help someone else. So let's jump right to it. Again, I did a video yesterday, which I'll post to get the link up here. It was about inflation and why the inflation is set at 2%. Where did that come from and why it's not necessarily a good thing for the economy. But let's talk about deflation. Let me share my screen and talk about two different articles I found, and then we'll talk about the period of history where we actually had a deflationary era. So first off, let's share this article about the Great Deflation from Wikipedia. Normally, they don't talk about this much. I remember when I was reading history in school, they did not talk about the period from 1870 to 1890 very much at all. They called it Reconstruction, kind of glossed over it. So this was called the Great Deflation or the Great Sag. It refers to a period between 1870 until 1890 in which the world prices, not just the U.S., but the world prices of goods, materials, and labor decreased, although at a low rate of less than 2% annually. But it's still, the cost of goods, materials, and labor went down. This was one of the few sustained periods of deflationary growth in the history of the United States. It had a positive effect on the economy in general as the purchasing power improved. Now, I went on to say some businesses suffered, such as warehousing and such, but for the most part, this was a positive to the economy. And productivity caused deflation. It was part of the Second Industrial Revolution. It was characterized by dramatic increases in productivity made possible by the transition from agriculture to industrialization in the leading economies. And then lastly, at the bottom here, you can go ahead and read this. I'll leave a link in the description. The Great Deflation occurred despite an increase in the world's gold supply, which William Stanley Jevons predicted would result in inflation. So before I go into the second article talking about what happened in this timeline, well, let's go into it. Let's just do that. So I found this other article. It was not an easy one to find, but this is a great blog. I don't know who Meng Hu is, but he did a great job with this blog, and he did an account of the good deflation in the American economy of 1870s, 1890s. Now, he talked about, again, the Wikipedia being 1873 to 1896. But one thing that grabbed right out here is that supply-driven deflation may be considered as good deflation insofar as productivity gains make goods and services cheaper and cheaper. So let me drop out of this and let's just talk for a minute about the general concept of inflation versus deflation. Now, I said in yesterday's video, which I'm linking up here, it's not good for inflation. Inflation, it erodes your purchasing power. As I shared that I'll share it again. But that video, I'm just trying to find the right image here. Hold on one second. But as I shared yesterday, the picture of like the purchasing power of your dollar significantly goes down. And the problem with that is that in just a matter of, it could be less than a generation where you lose like more than half of your purchasing power. Here it is. Let me share my screen real quick. Here we go. So here it is, that the purchasing power from 1913 to 2011, where 1913 is $1, and you can see in the 70s it's about 25 cents, and then it's well below a dime now. So it's been cut by more than 90% since 1913, and this is at the allegedly target of 2%. Now, 2%, as I did the math yesterday by Rule 72, every 36 years it should be cut in half. So we should have gone from $1 to 50 cents in 36 years. Well, if we started in 1913, that would mean 1949, we should be at 50 cents. Looking at this graph, it's about on target. You know, it went down during the Great Depression, came back up, then it hit 50 cents in about 1949. Great, it was on target. But then from 50 to 86 should have been 10 to 25%. Well, that was exacerbated or accelerated because of going off the gold standard in 1971. So we were on pace. We were above 30 cents in the 60s, but then we go off the gold standard and it really plummets. And it goes from above 25 cents down to below a dime in about a decade. And that was when it really took off and really hit to be a problem. This is with a target of 2%, mind you. The Federal Reserve is trying to hit 2%. So deflation versus inflation. So deflationary, if we think about it, right, the idea of industrial revolutions or scale of economy is that we make stuff and they should get cheaper, right? So think about it. Think about a big screen TV. Okay, big screen TV used to be thousands of dollars, but every year you go into these bigger department stores and you get see that the screens are bigger and the prices are lower. Why is that? Because economies of scale. We've started to make more TVs. The prices are going lower. Same with computers and all of electronics, really, all of consumer electronics. The prices go lower as there's more volume put into it. There's more demand on the supply. People start making components for it. The prices go down. They get more efficient in building things. And that happened with the Ford in the turn of the 1900s when they made the Model T on the assembly line. Made it very easy, and that drove the price of the Ford down to a price where the average consumer could buy it. That was economies of scale. But what's happening now is that supply chains are getting broken. All these different reasons that we cannot make things cheaper than before, or the things that we're making cheap are just they don't last. So we've reached the point where we're not in a deflationary environment. When we were in a deflationary environment between the 1870s and the 1990s, we had just come in the U.S. We had just come off the U.S. Civil War, and we have all these plants that were made for making guns and supplies for the war. But then they got repurposed for industrial making of products that the economy needed, the North and the South, and throughout the U.S., and even to export. All these factories with the infrastructure that were there, plus returning people coming back from the Civil War, could work in those facilities. And all of a sudden, we have a ton of production. So now we're producing a ton of stuff that we need, but there's less effort than before the war because the factories existed now. So the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, high production. And even though like employers were not paying people more, the cost of an item was going down, which was less. And we weren't in a central bank at that time either. So we're in an economy where instead of this pen costing I'll call a penny back then, I get 2 pence for a penny. And 10 years later, because it was easier to make pens. So that's how it worked out. And then the economy improved. Life should improve with technological advances. How many times have we sworn at an electronic device like a phone or a laptop or a computer that isn't working right for whatever reason? It's supposed to make our lives simpler. So we have these devices, they don't work as efficiently because they have built-in obsolescence, or they run out of their life expectancy is not that long, and their efficiencies are not as high as we thought they would be. But we went up with looking for all these different places for better efficiencies. That's where humans are geared towards moving a path of least resistance. So now if we build a factory where normally we could build, say, 1 iPhone a day, now we can build 100. And we only needed 10 extra people instead of 100 extra people. So now we have 10 people making 10 phones a day versus 1 person making 1 phone a day. So now we have economies of scale. So now, even if we're paying those people the same rate, the business is making more money because they have more product to sell, and they can even lower the price, which they did in the 1870s, because they can compete with everyone. And they can still maintain their profit margin because the cost of building that same good is lower. The supplies are lower. The labor is lower. So in a deflationary market, prices go down, even if wages stay the same, and your purchasing price and your quality of life goes up. But we have not experienced that for over 100 years because of the event that happened after 1900 that led to the Federal Reserve, the income tax, and all the other stuff that was eroding our buying power and the amount of value that we have, and that the powers that be are stealing our value. So I wanted to share that about deflationary markets. We have had them in the past. They don't get talked about much in the history books, I think, for obvious reasons, because those who control who gets put in those books. Because I remember a lot of U.S. history. We studied it for 2 years when I was in school, but I do not remember the part after the Civil War up until World War I. It was very, very small coverage, not a lot, which is surprising because considering you spend 2 years on 250 years of history, you would think that a 30-year period of the U.S. history would get more coverage than a chapter or 2 in a book. So lots said today. I would love to hear your feedback. What do you think about a deflationary environment? Could it happen again today? What would that mean for you? What would it mean to the economy? How do you even picture that? Because none of us have ever lived through it. So I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Again, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Really helps out the channel. Really appreciate all the comments and all the feedback and all the watching. The viewers appreciate you all. You guys are the best. So with all that said today, I'm going to close the drawer in the bureau, say follow leader one more time, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.